This is the Solid Rock Retirement Strategies podcast brought to you by Jim Creed. Security and registered investment advisory services offered through Silver Oak Securities Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Silver Oak Securities Incorporated and Solid Rock Retirement Strategies are separate entities.
Welcome to the Solid Rock Retirement Strategies podcast. My name is Drew. Today, joined with me is Jim Creed. Jim, how are we doing?
Good. How are you today?
Very well, very well. Very warm, indeed.
Yes.
So today we're going to be talking about the concept of co-creating. And to lead us off, we are going to start by reading Matthew 25:14 through 30, the parable of the talents. For it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground, and hid his master's money. Now for a long time the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here, I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much, and enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had the 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered me 2 talents. Here, I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seeds. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, have what is yours. But his master said to him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I scattered no seed? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at coming I should receive what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him, and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Yes.
This is one of those verses, this is actually one of those passages where if you just, like the Sunday school version, it's just like the first part. It's like the first instances of the verses. It's invest what you have and God will be faithful and give you more. And the last guy doesn't do it. He just gets reprimanded. But if you go down and read the final part of the verse, it's like, oh no, he actually gets basically cast into hell. So in regards to investing, what does this mean to you?
Well, so we are on that theme of being co-creators. God created the earth. He took dust and he breathed into it life, right, and made man. But then he put Adam over the garden, and he had work for Adam to do. So we, in a sense, I know, actually, I think I heard that term the other night when I was sitting there with my wife, that we're co-creators, and she's like, wait a minute. And I said, no, think about it. We really are co-creators. I mean, we didn't create the world.
No.
We obviously didn't create life, but God put man over the earth, and we can either add to what he put here, or we can detract from it.
Right.
Depending on what we do with what we've been given. And in this story, I think it's very clear that what they had, what the servants had, it wasn't their own.
Right.
It was the master's.
Right.
Same with us. Our money is not our own, and I think that's hard, especially in today's age where everybody is about themselves, and it's hard not to get into that ownership versus stewardship mindset. With my business, which again isn't really my business, it's God's business. Everything I own is God's. And so the investments also would be an example of that, right?
Nothing.
So what am I doing with what God has entrusted to me? Am I burying it in the ground? I run into a lot of people right now, especially
This is the
with where the markets are.
money under the mattress crowd. Yeah.
Money under the mattress or bury it in the backyard kind of thing. They want to preserve what they have. And I understand that that mindset, especially with the uncertainty of what's going on. We haven't had a correction, a major correction in the
Nice if
market
there was
for
one,
a
yeah.
long period of time.
Yeah.
And so we're due for that. And then you kind of lump on top of that where the economy is and inflation and, just everything is running rampant. And then we've got a very contentious election that's on the horizon. So a lot of people are tempted to just, protect what they have. But in this story, obviously, we see what happened to the guy who
did just that. He protected what he had. He
protected what he had.
Yeah.
But God expects, he's given us so much, and he expects a return on that.
Right.
That's what this story's about, right?
Right.
It seems a little hard, but I mean,
Do you think he expects a return on it, or do you think he expects us to risk and trust him? And see what
well,
happens?
I mean, one of the lessons of this story is that there is no reward without risk.
That's true. Yeah.
We have to take risk.
Right.
And I would say that when you're doing biblically responsible investing, that I don't think it's on you anymore. It's on God,
Right.
because it's His anyway. And if we're investing it the way we think that He wants us to invest it, then the results are His. I mean, the money's His, everything's His, but also the results are His.
Right.
And the question is, do we trust Him with the results?
Right. Right.
And, I think we talked about this maybe last time. It used to be that, people bought individual stocks because that was the only way to really invest.
Right. There was no
And
mutual funds.
they liked the company, or they liked what they stood for, or they liked what they made. And now, we've got mutual funds, and we've got ETFs, and
Right.
and so people don't know what they own. They just look at the bottom line. And I mean, I've been fallen into that trap as well for a long time, and really led my clients in that same way until I became cognizant of this approach. And once I heard
You
this
become
approach,
aware that there's more than just one bottom line at a certain point.
right?
what I mean?
Is it about me, or is it about the kingdom?
Right. Right.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So, what's my motive in this?
When you became aware that there was more than one bottom line, what was like the final linchpin, do you think?
I mean, I think I mentioned that I heard the podcast with Eric Metaxas.
Was that
Yeah, that's when it's like, well, I didn't know what it was all about, but I knew, I heard that, and I'm like, okay, this is something that I need to do some digging on. And the more I got into it, I mean, I think I pretty much made up my mind I was going to do it really from the beginning, because I felt like God was calling me to do that.
right? How long did it take to switch everything over?
It took a little while because we didn't really know how to do it. We didn't know where to start.
Like, who do you use to even?
Yeah, so we started reaching out to different fund managers, and we started talking to different people, and we just got information and kind of started filling in
The
the
gaps.
picture, the gaps. And what we found, and again, I think we may have mentioned this before, but not all biblically responsible fund families are created equal. And what I mean by that is that there are fund families out there that call themselves biblically responsible, but they do not screen out
I couldn't be further from it.
anything that is, anti-biblical, or
Right.
maybe what would be the better word?
Abiblical,
Yeah, abiblical.
maybe.
Yeah,
A Christ,
yeah.
Antichrist day. I don't know.
Maybe. So they don't even screen those things out. So So we had to figure out what was the what did the universe look like, and we're just trying to get our arms around that. And then it was like, so I have a friend who is an advisor, and just met him not too long ago. And when he heard about biblically responsible investing, he said, "I want to learn how to do that." So I'm kind of walking through this with him, trying to help him see, not have to reinvent the wheel like I felt like kind of I did, and just bring him up to speed on what that looks like. And honestly, I think the investing part of it is going to be the easiest part, but you got to figure out, where am I going to put these people? Where am I going to invest their money if this is something that they really want to do?
Yeah.
And so we are there. I've got another friend who they actually invest the money themselves. We're using a money manager in order to do this. Now, within that, we are using biblically responsible fund families that are what I would call fundamental.
Right.
So what I mean by that is that they are screening out the companies that we don't want to be, and then they're also engaging the companies that we do want to be with and we want to encourage. And they're voting their proxies. They're actually putting their money where their mouth is, and they're donating a good portion of their proceeds to missions and mission organizations. So it's really an opportunity for your money to really have a kingdom impact in so many different ways. But I lost my train of thought.
Well, hold on. I stopped in the middle of what was your final. What was the knock on the door that said
I started going.
You started going down. That's okay. So, but the reason I asked the question was because the servants don't get a reason for why they're given the master's money. They don't get a reason,
or how much they were given,
or how much.
Right?
Yeah, they don't get. There's no reason. There's nothing telling us that the first servant who gets 5 and gets 5 is better than the second servant who gets 2 and gets 2. There does seem to be this idea that he who risks nothing is punished, and I do sort of wonder, is it sort of like that verse in Revelation, because you are neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. It kind of has this sort of idea to it, because it doesn't say that, if that third servant doesn't say if he had lost everything because he gambled it or something, maybe he would have been more, I don't know.
Yeah, I think if he would have at least tried, and lost it, and then I don't know. Obviously,
he would have been given grace.
Yeah,
instead of given, stiff upper lip.
Yeah,
which is the nice way of putting it.
Right.
And to cast the worthless servant out into the darkness. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Doesn't sound like a good place, does it?
It doesn't sound like a good place.
That's a place I don't want to be. How about you?
There? No way.
No, but I think the thing is, again, this is the bottom line is it's the master's money, and he can do whatever he wants to with it. And that reminds me of the story of the vineyard owner who went out and hired the workers, and he paid. He hired. I think there was 3 or 4 different sets of workers. Some at the beginning of the day, some at noon, some in the afternoon, some almost at the very end of the day. Right. And he paid the people that he hired at the very end first, so that everybody else could see. And he gave them exactly the same as what he gave the guys who started. And they said, well, wait a minute, this isn't fair. Well, again, it's his money.
His money.
And they agreed. They agreed to work for that.
Right.
They just, they wanted to change the rules when they saw that the people at the end.
And that's actually that's a little bit of a concept that. So people do like to talk about income inequality, but income.
Oh boy.
I know. Yeah. People do like to talk about
equality or equity.
Well, they mean equity, unfortunately, when they say income inequality. But if you poll people and you ask them what makes them upset, whether it's the person next door that is wealthy that makes them upset, or the person next door that is poor that makes them upset. They will say the person next door that is wealthy makes them upset. So, but then they will only have that opinion if they feel like there's no mobility. So if they feel like they themselves couldn't attain it,
Yes.
then they get, that's what makes them.
So again, it's like the guy who only got one or the guy who got two could have said, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why is this guy getting 5 and I'm only getting 2?
Right.
Or 1? And again, I think it's one of those
Both are
things
still
where,
doubling.
I mean, it was given. So I think we have to not look at others around us.
Yeah.
And you know what did Jesus said? The poor you will always have
Right.
with you, right? And that doesn't mean we don't help the poor, because obviously there are lots of scriptures out there that say, you know, if you do this for the least of, I mean, you've done it for him, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
That particular passage of the Bible where it says, "What you've done to the least of these, you've done unto me." So that is the second part of it is what you have not done.
well, that's, I think the whole
To the least,
point of this is if we are given something,
Right.
And I love the fact that talents in the Bible are, you know, that's the form
Form of income.
of money, right? But our talents also that we are given, you know, that God has made us with. If we sit on those things and we don't use them, that's really an affront to God, because He's giving you these gifts and you don't use them. Or you use them for, you know, other purposes.
For bad deeds, yeah.
Yeah, and again, that would be an example of what we were talking about earlier. You know, do we add to as co-creators, or do we detract?
Right.
And that brings us kind of full circle with the investments. Is the way that we're invested adding to the kingdom, or is it detracting from the kingdom? And again, I don't think if you don't know that you're doing this, then I don't think you can be held responsible. And again, this is something that is not on the forefront of Christendom. I mean, I think most Christians aren't aware that they can do this.
No.
And so what we really are wanting to do, I feel like my mission that God has given to me is to use this as a platform to just raise awareness. And so we're trying to do that in a way that honors Him. And, you know, of course, we are picking up clients along the way.
Sure.
But again, I just feel like I'm helping people to improve upon God's creation.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So again, and I'm not in any way putting myself in the place of God, but that's you know, the charge that I believe He's given me.
So I want to go back to this concept of co-creation. So, you know, Genesis 2:15, the Lord God took man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. What do you take that charge to take care of it to mean?
Well,
Does it mean just to keep it clean, or does that mean to expand it? And make
I think again to improve upon it, right? Yeah, because you know there were the plants, there were the animals, you know, and He gave him charge to name the animals, and so he did that. So I think that's again just improving upon what God already created.
Okay.
I don't know if that's what you're. I don't know if that answered the question.
So, I actually didn't know that. You wrote down here, work and worship are the same word in Hebrew. Work is actually a part of bearing His image. Work is an invitation to create and build alongside the ultimate entrepreneur. The perfect vision of entrepreneurship is one we can be united in purpose, passion, and pursuit with God. That's a little bit about something else. It's a little bit about the faith-driven entrepreneur thing coming up.
Yeah.
Let's see.
But I think it's cool, though, right? That,
It is.
that they're the same root word.
I didn't realize that.
Work and worship. Yeah.
Those are interesting. If you ask most people how they worship God, they talk about the songs they sing. They talk about what they see on Sunday. how many people, if you go, you see him in their office, it's like, oh, he's worshiping while he's working. Like, oh, by the way, what a cool thing if your kids ever see you and say that, or your grandkids ever see you and say, oh, that's my granddad. He's working and worshiping at the same time.
Yeah, I think something that's dawned on me the last maybe month and a half is that, and I'm obviously not a spring chicken. I'm 63.
I'm 25.
And you're 25, so you are a spring chicken, especially compared to me. Is that I've gotten to a place where I'm really I have more than what I need. God has really blessed us. That it hasn't always been the case, and I at some point can go through my testimony, which is interesting, but maybe that we will do that a different time. But just kind of lost my train of thought there. So where was I going with that?
I don't know. No idea. No idea. It was about work.
What did you ask me right before that?
It was about work and worship.
Oh, work and worship.
How did it relate? So work is an invitation to create and build alongside the ultimate entrepreneur. The perfect vision of entrepreneurship is when we can be united in purpose, passion, and pursuit with God.
So yeah, I know what so I was talking about the what's dawned on me the last couple months is that, and this is going to sound cliche, but my business, God's business, Solid Rock Retirement Strategies, is a platform for ministry. And I've always felt that way, but I think up until this point,
it hadn't really hung true.
I don't think it wasn't that it hadn't come true, but not in the ways that it is now.
Okay.
And there's a quote from Ernest Hemingway book where the character asks another character how he became bankrupt, and the answer was gradually, then suddenly.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of what is happened with my life, is that God had to teach me a lot of lessons to get me to this point. And so it's been a very gradual, very painful at times, a journey. But then I think it prepared me for where I am today. And when this was presented to me, I knew what I had to do. And I think the old me, before all of that pain and all of that struggle that I went through because of the materialistic. Yeah. I had a family that I think there was a spirit of materialism in my family. I know there was. I've got a grandfather and an uncle that both committed suicide. I think it was money related. I think I was kind of going down that same path. And so
break the wheel, right? You gotta break the wheel, right?
Yeah. And so anyway, I think, just kind of moving off of that, my work is my worship. And I feel so blessed, because it's like, I remember early on, when I was struggling at the very beginning, one week I got instead of getting a paycheck in the envelope, I got a bill. The reason I got a bill was because I was self-employed. I had to pay rent.
Yeah.
And so basically what happened was my commissions didn't cover all of that. Yeah. And I remember sitting down and actually crying. Wow. My wife and I both cried. And I felt like, I'll tell you, I felt like a failure.
Yeah.
And I very distinctly remember God saying to me, this is not who you are. This is what you do.
Right.
And, he said, your identity is in me. You are my child. And so, that was a process to really learn that over a period of time.
Yeah.
But now, come full circle, when I got into this a couple years ago, it dawned on me that who I am has become what I do. Or what I do has become who I am. I'm not sure how you say that, You know what I mean?
What you're saying is that like you've actually you've not become identified with your work. Your work has become identified by your identity in Christ.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and that kind of change is a gradual and sudden change because that's what faith is.
Right.
No one actually has faith until they finally take a leap off the cliff.
Exactly.
You don't have faith in you may go all the way to the edge 10 times, but you don't have faith until you jump
don't
off.
take that step.
You
Right.
don't take the step. It doesn't exist.
Right.
So faith is one of those concepts that atheists mock and agnostics cannot find. Okay, but Christians, we all know that it is real. Atheists and agnostics can't understand it. They can't even have faith because it doesn't make sense to them. It's neither
Doesn't
rational.
fit into their paradigm.
It's neither rational nor irrational faith. It doesn't even fit into it just is.
Right.
It just is. So, and that's, I do think that is, if I could get down to the heart of the parable of the talents, it's a parable about faith.
Yeah.
So it's a parable about putting your faith in God.
Trust.
Because
Absolutely.
you could lose all 5 of the talents.
Yeah.
And then what would the master do? It's kind of left to be unknown. I mean, the master.
I think it really depends. Again, what was your heart when you invested it?
Right.
Were you doing it for yourself or were you doing it for him?
So let's get into some of one of the concepts of biblically responsible investing, which is that you are having faith with the money that God has given you. For the people who might be on the edge of doing that kind of thing,
I will tell you that I've seen a lot of people who I introduce this topic to, who are what I would call strong believers. Obviously, I don't know, but I see the evidence there. Really struggle with this.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, I think somehow the world, Satan has kind of, parted the, money has become a separate thing from the rest of our lives. It's almost like how, some people compartmentalize Sundays, right? And for God, and then the rest of the week is theirs. So, again, it's the whole ownership versus stewardship. And I think when you understand that everything that we have is from Him, then it takes on a new meaning. And again, I think it makes things so much easier. It takes the pressure off of us.
Right.
And again, going back to the parable of the talents, we're not all given the same. Some people are given more, some people are given less. But we are only responsible to be faithful with what we've been given. And we need to trust God that He's going to provide for us. And, the scripture about the plants of the field and the birds of the air that He takes care of, and is He not going to take care of us? And so, we can trust Him to provide for us. And I heard somebody say it the other day, He gives us our needs, not necessarily our greeds.
Yeah.
Now, it's just a catchy way to kind of remember that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be greeds, but it's just, what our wants aren't always going to be fulfilled. But if we trust Him and we are found in Him, then I feel like our wants become His wants, what He wants for us. And it's a slow, as you said before, it's a slow transformation, but it's that whole story of sanctification. It's 1 degree of glory at a time that we're transformed into His image. And so money is, I think, probably the hardest part for everybody.
It's one of the final things that I think is let go on your walk with Christ. So
it's the hardest thing to trust about. It's the hardest thing to just...
it's actually probably one of the reasons that poorer nations have stronger faith than America does. is because that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So it's like if you talk to like an Ethiopian Christian, it's like that guy is going to be quite the stalwart faith-driven person compared to, some person in the United States. But I don't think it has to be that way. And the reason I don't think it has to be that way is because there have been very, very wealthy times in church history. And there have been very, very strong faith times in church history together. And I do believe, I suppose one of the things that I think that the founding fathers got wrong was they leaned more on the Enlightenment than the Renaissance. So they leaned far more on the fact that they believed on the Enlightenment said that the earth was a mechanical motion of, gases and laws of physics, and it was this well-oiled clock. All God did was push the clock into motion. He started the ticker. And what the Renaissance said is no, God did do that, but then he also comes in and he turns the chronograph to set the time. That's what the Renaissance said. And for what it's worth, I think that Christians in America, I feel like that Enlightenment philosophy has worked its way all the way up through the 19th century, and it's led to chaos. This cold, unfeeling, God has actually emptied the churches in a way. Mm-hmm. And I really think that finally, it's coming back. I'm excited for it. So I'm excited about it with the biblically responsible investing. I think that the more Christians can get their head around this, then the more Christians that will be able to get their faith to follow.
Yeah, and I think that takes us back to what we were talking about before, improving on God's creation. And so we all know that we're really, I think, at a crossroads right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And are we going to go, the way of ESG? Are we going to go the way of...
That's the way Canada's going.
Yeah. About the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
And so are we going to go that direction, or are we going to go, towards the light? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say necessarily that that's evil, but I think it can be used for evil purposes. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing is that companies are being, forced into woke positions.
Yep.
And then they're kind of forcing that on the consumers as well. Mm-hmm. And I think you're going to social credit scores.
Do you think that's the next step?
I think that's coming soon.
That's coming soon?
They're already doing it in China.
I know, but I think that personally, I think the next step is going to be a big push for some kind of identification style banking.
Oh, absolutely. No. That to me, they go together. They go together. No, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, I think I saw something today or yesterday that Biden just signed something, and I don't know, I didn't get a chance to read the entire thing, but it was something to clear the way for the central bank digital currencies. And if that happens,
for what it's worth, so a question: what I'm not a financier. I'm a total nerd, math guy, geek. What do you think about Bitcoin and about cryptocurrency?
I don't have an opinion about Bitcoin. I have not researched Bitcoin.
I have not either, except to the degree that I understand a little bit how they generate the coins, how that kind of exists, because that's a little bit of a mathy concept, and I was a math major in college. But even then, I wouldn't even be... As I understand it, an individual Bitcoin is unique, just like an individual piece of gold is. And so the idea is that as long as you're so that they mine Bitcoins there's a fixed number of Bitcoins, by the way. Mm-hmm. They're unlimited. Now, I do know that they occasionally will issue more into the market, but the idea is that they're not unlimited. And basically, to my understanding, it could be a replacement for the gold dollar, for a gold-backed dollar.
Well, I think from a very simple, view of this is if it's decentralized. I like that idea.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin is decentralized.
Sure.
I don't like the idea of centralized
Of world
currency.
Crazy.
A one world currency, it talks about that in the Bible. It talks about a one world religion and a one world currency.
It's true.
And social credit scores are going to be what, they beat us over the head with. And basically, they'll be able to control your life because you will only be you'll be given so much money. Yeah, and you will only be able to spend that money in a certain radius of your home, wherever that is. And they'll be able to turn your credit card off or whatever it is, your bank account.
Right.
Anywhere outside of that. If they don't like what you're eating, they don't like what you're spending money on, they can shut it down. And if your neighbor sees you doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, and they can get extra by telling on you, brother will turn against brother. I mean,
I've seen that. That is already,
yes.
This has already happened. This is the story of Russia. Story of the Soviet Union.
This just happened in Minnesota.
Oh yeah, you're right with that. Was that the school district one? No, that was the other one.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm not exactly sure what, but it was.
There was one in a school district. I think it was where a school nurse, or maybe it was a hospital. So the parents, the 16-year-old boy went to the children's hospital. Now I'm recalling it now. This is in Texas, of all places, and the boy said that he was a girl and he wanted to transition, and then the Texas hospital decided that was what was going to happen. Specifically, the chaplain of the hospital, it was this extremely woke chaplain, to begin with. So, but they decided they were going to transition the boy, who happened to be autistic as well. It's kind of crazy. But, and then the parents didn't agree with it. So the hospital reported the parents to Child Protective Services.
Of course.
And then this whole thing played out, and then it gets to the end of the process 8 months later, and the boy decides he's no longer trans. So the parents have court fees, and they've been through complete hell, and what? So it's so crazy. So, but then you have, in Canada, I think it might be not the prime minister, but it's one of the ones under him, tells that the kids are supposed to report on their parents.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's like the same thing that happened.
I mean, they were debanking the truckers in Canada, and there's been debanking done in the United States.
Yeah, that's the argument for a decentralized currency. That's where I would say the Bitcoin, people have it
I like that idea for sure. I don't know how you value Bitcoin. I don't know, I don't know anything about that.
Right.
But we're definitely moving in that direction. And I follow occasionally a lady named Catherine Austin Fitz, who used to work in the government. I think she was maybe she worked for HUD for a while. Really sharp lady. And she advocates doing Cash Fridays. So I don't know about you, but I'm lazy and I need to change this. But I put everything on my credit card. I don't carry cash. As a matter of fact, I was at the store the other day and I did have a little bit of cash with me, and I can't remember, I was buying something, and the girl gave me change, and it was I was giving her change. And it was like, wait a minute, my brain's not working. I don't remember how to do this because it's been so long since I've done it. It was, it's really sad. It's really sad. So what she advocates is, because the whole thing, people maybe say, well, what's the big deal with this, with a central bank digital currency? They'll be able to track every single thing we do. Yeah, they'll know exactly how you spend your money. If you're spending cash, they don't know.
Right.
They don't like cash. Have you noticed that you can't get much cash out of the bank anymore, if any? No. They put limits on how much you could get. I remember my wife going to the bank, and I said, hey, I want to have some cash on hand in case something happens with satellites or whatever, and my credit card doesn't work.
Right.
And I think there's a limit at 5,000. If anything's over 5,000, then they kind of flag it.
I don't know about the taking out, but inputting is also weird.
Yes.
So you can't put in more than 10,000.
Well, I told her, I think it was a check for over $5,000, and I told her to cash it, and they did not want to give her the money. And she is, and I mean, it was like going back, and this was a few years ago. This was a few years ago. Finally, they did give her the money, but I don't think they hold a lot of cash on hand, probably for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's face it, everything's easier if it's digital. So
I personally prefer the digital, as I'm sure you would suspect.
I mean, and I do too. It's easy, right? You just, you show somebody, you give you somebody your card.
Yeah.
And then boom, they just take it. Comes right out of your account. Okay, but that's a problem because it's gotten so easy that we've got addicted to it.
Right.
And now they're going to use it against us. So,
well, that's that. That's easy. We just got to not let them centralize the currency at the world level.
yeah, I don't know. That's going to be a struggle. So. I think that one of our last tools that we have is money.
Yeah.
Because
money talks.
Money talks, and let's face it, the people that don't agree with us, money really talks with them. The money is probably the most important thing.
It's a very universal language.
Yes.
Yes. So the second people start losing their assets to this, I do think it's the second, because it already is, the writing's kind of on the wall. I mean, people are really losing money over the current administration right now. Inflation's out of control.
Think about it. Inflation is really an invisible tax.
It's an invisible tax on your money.
Yeah. It is. I never thought about that, and then I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, they can just.
Yeah.
I mean, they can just increase inflation. And it costs us so much more. So they're getting the money.
Hold on,
one way or the other.
But they can. Hold on. They can do it in a way that benefits them and hurts you. And I think that's the part.
Right.
Because if inflation went down, that would actually be an increase in your earnings. So if inflation was negative, okay, in other words, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But if they stopped printing money and started destroying some of the money that was on books, then your dollar would actually become more valuable.
Right, yeah. Just like Bitcoin, right? There's only so many Bitcoin out there.
So, but it's like what they do is that they'll take you'll get saved, obviously not the tax rate, but make $100,000, say they tax $1,000, $1,000 tax. Okay, you hand that off to them. But then they make inflation that makes that $100,000 worth $90,000. So now you've given them $1,000 of $90,000. You didn't give them $900. You gave them $1,000 of $90,000 worth, right? Mm-hmm. That's the first, that stuff bothers me to no end. So, because it means that you just got taxed $10,000 effectively. Mm-hmm. And you have no kind of recourse to fight it.
Can't do anything about it.
No.
I mean, you gotta live. You want to buy. You gotta have food. You gotta have gas in your car. You gotta heat your house or cool your house.
I mean, if we learned anything last week, is that we can eat joy. We can really eat. And so, all right, that's it. That's the one. I'll cut it off there.
All right.